Hello, one and all, to some PUL action here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon in New Rochelle, New York, here at Joseph F. Facina Field for the New York Gridlock at 2-1 on the season, taking on the Philadelphia Surge at 4-0. Again, thanks for joining us on this PUL broadcast. Dan Hilton alongside former Gridlock, current Philadelphia Surge, Andrea DeSabato. And Andrea, jumping right into this one for the Gridlock because of the PUL season, they've still got Philadelphia twice more on the schedule, a 2-1 record. And for Philadelphia at 4-0, they've got the Gridlock twice more in the regular season. And as quickly as you blink, the season is over and they're already in the playoffs. So it does feel like there's a playoff intensity here during warmups. Yes,
a new format to the schedule this year, more teams playing one another twice. Uniquely, Philadelphia is playing New York back-to-back, 2 games in a row. There's a weekend break, but Gridlock has a game against Indy in between the two showings, so it's a very interesting strategy between them. What are you going to show this game? You might not want to show the next game. How are you going to also play consistently? What can you learn from these to prepare for the next game? Whereas Gridlock has an interesting challenge of preparing for this, then Indy, then back to Philly.
And certainly I think one of the things in both of these teams, the back of their minds, is trying to avoid DC as long as possible. The one loss to the Gridlock this season, and even looking a season ago, 5-1, it was the same thing, a semifinal loss to DC. And then for the Philadelphia Surge, while they did miss the postseason last year with a 4-2 record, even before that, the sense was, yeah, it's DC or bust. Of course, DC, for as good as they are, you never know come the postseason. But in this one here, again, getting back to the action, well, not only thank you for joining us on what is I would say, almost sweltering hot Sunday afternoon. The Gridlock will begin our game on offense with some of the players missing today. It means that we're seeing some new O-line members, including Sam Harris, the number 74. But, of course, no stranger to the O-line is, of course, Gina Cartagena. And she'll be handling in the backfield there with Grace Connerly and Abby Hecko, who's made the move this season from the D-line over to the O-line and has been the leading goal-getter in the stead of DeJesus. Harris puts it up, and that looks pretty O-line to me as Sam Harris. They connect on that long assist to the number 4, Maria Waverka, her second goal of the season.
I caught up with Coach Taylor before the game, and as you said, there are some different matchups. There is a couple people switching lines. There's some practice players being pulled up. So there's a lot of changes. They are a next person up mentality. They make their practice players make sure they're ready. They've had a couple games with them, a lot of practices with them so far. So Brittany Taylor was saying, we have a couple people switching in, but we feel confident in them and that they're ready to show what they need.
Emma Poyer, a late scratch yesterday for personal reasons for the Gridlock. So one of their regular cutters taken out of the lineup, as well as on the defensive side of the ball. Eli Pressburg also out for this one. So again, a few players that were on the practice squad have been called up for the Gridlock. And again, you'll see a lot of players going both ways here, playing O-line and D-line for the Gridlock, again, including Sam Harris, who is playing on this D-point alongside the puller, Sadie Dudersky. But for Philadelphia, the first time to get a look at their offense, and not only their O-line, but the likely, I'd say, PUL MVP this season in Lindsay McKenna, the number 5, setting the disc to Sarah Liang. And there, of course, is the aforementioned McKenna, getting the matchup on McKenna, at least for this point.
Lindsay so far this season has played a lot of defensive points. I think with a couple players like Linda Morse and some other folks missing this game, she will cross over a lot, maybe be permanently on the O-line too.
And our first chance to try to see if McKenna could pull down the goal, it was instead D'd by Ronnie Shaw, her second block of the season. So for Ronnie Shaw, unavailable for the early part of the year, is now come in on this D-line, and that is a huge matchup early for Shaw.
Yeah, same corner of the end zone, a little bit closer, but tried the same exact throw. Both teams kind of looking to score really quickly in the same third. No exactly patient end zone that we've seen. Gridlock didn't need it. Maybe Surge could have benefited from it there.
This is our first break opportunity for either team. It's Maggie Fan in her first season, gives it right back.
Grace Maroon with a block there. Really nice read on that under.
The upline cut, and Philly just inches away. McKenna dancing. Now high stall count. Nice break throw around the mark and into the end zone.
And that's a hold for
As Philly, it's a dirty hold.
That goal scored by number 16,
But Poppy Wagner, 4th goal of the season for her.
Catching the goal from her college teammate in Venus, who has also qualified for Division I Nationals this season, Grace Maroon. They both helped run that team together on and off the field, connecting for the first goal there.
Some UPenn connectors, and Wagner even before that, part of Lower Merion Lady Baba. So has always been a Philadelphia product.
There's a really tight mark there by Jezierski. Maroon really had to step out, step around, get through that. Probably some contact there, but didn't want to call it and fought through it for the break.
And Maroon this season, 9 assists for her. Again, a former member of the U24 USA team, U20 national women's team. And she just continues to get better and better.
Coach Taylor, I asked her before the game, what matchups are you looking at? They said, we have eyes on McKenna and Maroon, like every other team. So those are obviously 2 players getting involved early, both on the O-line, that a lot of teams are going to be looking at.
And what growth have you seen from Grace over the last few seasons as, again, she continues to break out?
Yeah, just an absolute all-around versatile player, has gotten so much more confident throwing, has always had great throws, but decision-wise, she used to stick to more of the resets, the 100% shots. This year, we've seen her open that up a little bit, try some longer throws, try some away throws, really try and develop her confidence in game play that way instead of just kind of sticking to what is the sure shot. But she has the throws to take them all, so it's been nice to see her do that.
And after the Wind took that reset, it'll be the Philadelphia Surge with their first opportunity at a break here. Faye Epstein. Again, resets. Lisa Dang. High stall count, inside throw, meets turf. And let's see if the Surge, they got the timeout off in time. And there is something to be said. Again, these coaching staffs, Brittany Taylor, joined by Dmitry Suvorov. And on the other side for the Philadelphia Surge, Bobby Ruse, Dave Baer, Nick Perifico, and Steve Weary. As we want to let you know that the Discraft Ultra Star is the official disc of the Premier Ultimate League. Discraft, the world leader in disc sports. And this live broadcast of the Premier Ultimate League is brought to you by Breakmark Ultimate Apparel. Go to breakmark.com to place your next custom team order or check out the PUL Athlete collab shops. So some changes here as the Gridlock will look to try to get it back, but they're going all in with their D-line here as a line switch.
Nice read by Coach Ruse there to see his player a little bit flustered. Gridlock had a great mark, putting them under pressure. No one clearly open up field. Reads that situation to call a timeout to sub in his O-line.
So stall count gets reset. Another high stall count. Out of the hands to Cunningham. Cunningham swings. Liang. You see that help with the poach. Still Cunningham. Good pressure downfield by the Gridlock. Finally, forward for Maroon. To McKenna in the middle of the field. Gridlock generally forcing backhand here. That was the pass that they were forcing. It's a swirling wind here at Facina. And it is interesting to know, this is really the first time this season that either of these teams, Andrea, have dealt with any humidity. There's something to be said about this stadium in particular. The wind is always expected, but it could still be 88 degrees and windy.
Yeah, it's a dry heat, but the breeze and the wind is gusty. So it's going to take some of these throws. It might come out of your hand one way and then finish a certain way unintended. So some of those floatier, loftier passes are going to be tough. Gridlock has really good throwers in Jezierski and Gina Cartagena that they're no stranger to the wind. They like it. They're probably used to this field with some of the gusts.
Well, Jezierski had a beautiful layout there, but 2 passes later, it was another turnover for the Gridlock, and they get it right back through who else but Jezerski, who has been a welcome addition, returning home originally from Westfield, New Jersey, one of those neighboring towns to Maplewood, the birthplace of Ultimate. Here's Cassie Brown from Jezerski. Jezerski was the WUL Defensive Player of the Year. Cassie Brown looking for Nikki Hare, and that's another D with the peel off. And pretty good defense by Faye Epstein.
Sarah Hiernett.
Oh, by Hiernett, rather. Her second block of the season. And we'll get another look at that block by Hiernett. And Hiernett, of course, 7th in goals, by the way, since 2023 with 33. Just in front of Grace Maroon, who, even though she only has 4 goals this season, is 9th in league goals since 2023 with 31. And the Surge, of course, have had a winning record since their origins as they give the disc right back. So remember, this would be a Gridlock hold if they were able to put this in with their D-line. And Jezerski goes for the blade, cross field, and that one is knocked down, this time by McKenna. Looking for Shaw. McKenna airs it out. Hangs up in the wind. And finding a way, going to the ground was K-Spa. But I think they said that hit the ground, so.
Yeah, it was, she threw it away right in the first second. She had it to a Grace Maroon, not ready for it.
Jezerski, hammer over the top. Unable to read it.
Observer signaling that there's an injury call. There's going to be a substitution.
And we'll get an injury substitute coming in. It'll be in her first PUL game, Ashley Wright, out of Central Connecticut State University, where she was a Division I soccer player.
Surge also taking a sub there, Hiernett off for Chelsea Semper.
It had been a big point already for Hiernett. K-Spa. The matchup with Wright. That disc will again float. A little bit too far for McKenna. Intended for Liang with 5 minutes remaining here in the first. Still 1-1. And another reminder that this is a Gridlock 0 point as Fan, her second turn of this point, intended for Hare. And now we're getting to a little bit of a battle of field positioning. Now Surge. Closing in on that break, but Jezerski says no. Her second block of this point.
I'd say Sadie set that a trap.
Both teams looking for the longer passes. Even the swings are 15, 20 yards. That's really far in this wind. It has not proven simple so far. I'm almost wondering if it's better to try and contain, try and play a little bit smaller while you're trying to convert here.
There's a few little passes as Fan vacates the area. Brown to Jezerski. Wagner was hunting. Jezerski. This one will float. And unable to read it. Again, fatigue at this point in the game, too, clearly taking effect as well.
I think that's the second timeout of the point for Surge there.
And now you're getting to the point where you understand that this is just an essential point at this point. Again, remember, it's still a Gridlock 0 point. And now the Surge will have to go the full length of the field again. Baker Street Health provides our players and staff with behavioral health, sport, and performance psychology, as well as podiatry services. They are located throughout New Jersey and are available for telehealth in over 35 states. From head to toe, our team is covered with Baker Street Health. So 3:56 remaining in the first quarter. And you had mentioned one of the subplots was Philadelphia, again, in this regular season, only has New York left. And there might be something that they don't want to show yet. But as far as both these teams, it also feels like kind of just have to get this point. You have to use everything you have to score.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, you can wait to see how the game goes and maybe not come in with everything that you have, your whole arsenal of every play and everything going on. But at this point, with as messy as it's been and a lot of minutes have ticked off, you just need to be able to convert. Surge subbing back in some defensive players.
And also
for an O-line here.
And also entering the game for the Gridlock, the number 0, Meta Leary. You could see her playing the deep in this zone. So the Gridlock trying to make sure that the Surge are stuck on their own end line. Surge, a bunch of completions here.
A zone look from Gridlock there, trying to trap. They were not playing person defense. They were very far off, bit of a 3-person cut. Forces them to throw a messy throw like that, probably high stall.
And it works. Now the other way, just at the end of her extended arm. Shaw could not bring it in. Abby Hecko, who just subbed on after that last time out with the attempt. So Shaw goes right back to the mark, along with Reverka in that first wall. Good patience by Philadelphia, who this season have done so well with 94% completions. Again, 85% holds does not apply to this point because it's still a Gridlock 0 point. Now Epstein for Semper. And Semper was on this point earlier and left this point and has come back to this point. So now you have 2 different shifts on the same point. Philadelphia had some movement, but as they reach their third phase, just got caught in the wind again. Hecko looking for Lamb. Instead, it will force another layout by Jezierski. Now Jezierski for Reverka. That will work. It's 4v2. Lamb looks to finish. And an acrobatic catch by Meta Leary. Just her second game ever in the PUL, and now she's got a highlight. And again, the Gridlock. Usually you say dirty hold, and I don't think there's a Roomba big enough to explain how difficult.
The amount of turns on both teams there, yeah. It seemed like both were getting pretty tired, too. A lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
So much, they had to sub 2 different times. That's one of the things you look for in Jezierski, though. It is windy. A lot of people are turning over the farther shots. That still sat. It wasn't perfect, but gave it enough space and gave their receiver enough space to catch it with a lot of momentum and be able to be person up in the end zone.
And there might be a slight advantage, of course, in this wind for the Gridlock. They do practice here. They know this stadium quite well. And for the Surge, though, as much as we say that, they have played in windy conditions.
A lot of rain so far this year they've played in. A lot of rain games.
So with 1:55 remaining here in the first, the Surge will have another opportunity on O-line. So many of the members of that D-line remain for the Gridlock, except Jolie Krebs joining them. And for this O-line for Philadelphia, this has been the O-line that's been starting since things began. Pretty easy, pretty quick, pretty simple for the Philadelphia Surge O-line.
That line was able to get some rest during that long point. We're able to come on fresh there, found a lot of space looking for Grace Maroon, and Gridlock had a sag there on the handlers, but they looked past it, hitting Grace Maroon with a lot of space, just kept it going down that side.
And for Philadelphia, again, it must be a breath of relief after such a long defensive point. Now at 2-2. Again, with 1:48 remaining in the first. You can see out there on every point is Jenny DeJesus. And out with injury for most of the season and likely the remainder of the season. But a huge miss would be, and this is her 8th season, 25 goals last year, plus 25.
Talking to Coach Taylor before the game, she mentioned a lot of their unexpected injuries and how they've had to plan, whether that's DeJesus in the beginning of the season, other players throughout, or just randomly people missing certain games here and there for attendance issues. She was saying that has been one thing that they've had to focus on this year. And how are we going to fill in spots of people who are injured, especially a player like De Jesus, who is so important to them, so impactful for them.
And then aside from Philadelphia, they have, again, going back to the beginning of their franchise, largely this season especially, been generally healthy and had quite good attendance, which they say, again, in the professional level is really almost half the battle to get that buy-in. And the Surge, again, since day one, has had that buy-in. Today they're without Zoe Costanza, who is second on the team with 10 goals, but she will likely be back for that home game against Philadelphia, or against New York, I should say, down in Philadelphia, as well as Linda Morse. Here's Krebs in the backfield with Cartagena, and Lamb from the front of the stack. And so often, and of course Philadelphia, watching the tape, knew that between Cartagena and Krebs and Lamb, a lot of dominator sets from the Gridlock, but that has been the case, again, dating so many years back and almost since Jenny De Jesus kind of arrived. And it's been interesting that the playing style hasn't changed too much this season. Talking
to Surge coach Dave Baer before the game, he mentioned, how do we limit players like Cartagena and Krebs and people that are so impactful? You're not necessarily coming out here to completely stop them. You're coming out here to minimize them. How do we make them less productive?
Another turnover for the Gridlock. This offensive point now is going to have to be a defensive point, as Hecko a little bit too far. Intended for Harris. And we have not had a break yet. It's just been dirty holds. Sam Harris gets the D. Now Cartagena picks up. After all that, an extra 3 feet or so closer to the end zone. That's all Jolie Krebs needs. And New York, another dirty hold. 3-2 with 13.9 seconds remaining. And I think with, again, the PUL rule of last possession, just giving Surge 14 seconds remaining means that New York played this about as well as you wanted. And there's a break on the mark, too, by Cartagena.
Really smart defense there by Gridlock. Being able to throw the junk, really back up the Surge offensive charge, not giving them an easy out of the end zone, containing that space so that if they do get a block, they're right on the doorstep and can just finish with one breakthrough like that.
So that'll be a goal for Jolie Krebs and an assist for Cartagena. Cartagena since 2023. After 21 assists last year, 37 the year before, has the most assists in the PUL. Second is Atlanta's Quincy Booth.
15 seconds left on the clock. The clock won't start until the first pass after the pull is released.
So again, the rule of the PUL, once they receive the pull, the clock begins then after that first pass. And with 14 seconds left, Surge with pretty decent field position here. Cassie Brown on the mark. And now the clock has started. Break throw to McKenna. Kind of looking infield. Good help defense by Chin. And McKenna. This throw is not going to get off, I believe, before zeros. But again, it's last possession now. And because the zeros hit, that will end the first quarter. As the Gridlock, they hold 3 times. The Surge answered twice, and New York find themselves up 3-2 after 1.
Uncharacteristic drop there from Maroon at the end. Maybe felt some pressure behind her, or maybe was thinking about the next step, but that's one of those that's just like right in your hands, right in your breadbasket. Maybe a little bit of distraction.
We'll be back in a second for the second quarter.
I'm here at the Triangle Ultimate Middle School Championships, where over 30 middle school teams are showing us exactly what the future of our sport looks like. Local, accessible, youth ultimate. At the Ultimate Foundation, we envision a world where everyone has the opportunity to experience ultimate as a sport that inspires integrity, relationships, and belonging. Founded in 2014, we are the philanthropic arm of USA Ultimate. Our funding priorities are focused on fostering access, growing youth ultimate, investing in local communities, and supporting the Girls Ultimate Movement and the Del Rico Johnson Fund. Our mission is to fuel a future for Ultimate that is accessible to all backgrounds and identities by supporting USA Ultimate programs, partners, and communities. Let's stop sitting on the sidelines. Let's make the ultimate difference for the next generation.
Back here for the second quarter. I want to thank you for joining me on what is the first, I would say, real hot Sunday afternoon of the PUL season. It's been a lot of rain, but for these players, too, when we talk about the heat, yes, the sun's going to be going down, but it's still in the high 80s at this point, and it's the first time of the year. You can't even practice and prepare for this. You kind of just take the weather as it comes.
Yeah, there has not been a day like this in Philly that they've had a game, especially a practice. You see them during the breaks all going under the shade tents. Probably that little bit of shade is really useful to just get a break from the sun. I don't see a cloud anywhere in front of us here, so those tents are working overtime right now.
Yeah, and again, these are the days when your sports performance staff, like for the Gridlock Arena, Elazar, and does her work. So the Gridlock will begin this second quarter on defense, as the Surge will look to receive here. And for the Surge, also speaking again to Coach Dave Baer before this one, he did say that there was a little bit of juice in that Surge warm-up, thinking, you got Gridlock twice in a row, and it would mean a little bit of something to potentially eliminate them from postseason contention. So I think they would mathematically need a little bit of help, but by beating Gridlock twice, it would put them in a pretty precarious position, depending on that Indy Red result. And that's a drop by Wagner, with Wright bringing the pressure. And you can see Wright's closing speed, as I mentioned, a Central Connecticut State women's soccer player. Played 4 seasons from 2019 through 2023, scoring 2 goals in the 2020 season as a freshman. Able to handle that pass was Audrey Parrott from Minnesota. A ton of players from both these teams with Minnesota or Twin City connections. There's Parrott again. Hecko. And Hecko, that's a Seattle product. And that's another turnover by Hecko. Got caught up in the wind on the reset. And now this Surge O-line gets the disc back. All these points with this wind, a bit of a war of attrition. You can see this fun matchup downfield between K-Spa and Leary. Jezierski, unafraid of the ground. Heard the ground might be afraid of her. She's been willing to go horizontal a number of times already today for those save discs and to get the D. Leary, Jezierski. This could be the first break of the contest if Hecko can come down with it, and Jezierski is dealing. First break of the game goes New York's way. It's 4-2.
Really nice block there by Jezierski, and then goes to the front of the stack. Doesn't sit back in the handler space like you'd normally see from a player who is back there often. Able to go take the front of the stack, get just an edge there, and that's all she needs to be able to just throw a touch, little bit of a blade to the right spot so Hecko can come down with that.
And you can mention for younger players here on that D by Jezierski, it was such a good fake on that in cut, but Jezierski made the decision to go horizontal so early, and especially again with young players, you making that commitment means that that space is going to be yours.
That's one of those where, as the thrower, you might want to fake that. You know, it's a very predictable cut. It's a very predictable throw. It's a tight space on the sideline. Look that off, let Jezierski hit the deck, and then move around, and then move the disc around. It's a perfect time for a fake in that moment.
Yeah, and so often around the league, some of the best defensive players are merely the ones that offensive players don't throw at. It's not necessarily that they've racked up so many blocks, but their teammates get the blocks because there is a bit of a fear factor in terms of throwing at some of the best, again, defensive players that this league can showcase. Similar O-line for the Surge. And here's McKenna right from the middle of the stack. McKenna looks deep. It's Maroon, and Maroon with the left hand.
That huck from Lindsay McKenna, Fox number 19.
Maroon able to elevate there, went up early. You could tell that Lamb was very much in the frame, in the picture, very tight space. But Maroon goes up early and is able to have enough in her jump to make contact and bring it down.
Look to get the trailing edge of the disc with the left hand. What a catch by Grace Maroon, again, to keep her space with the back of that end zone coming ever nearer. And to put all that together between the catch, the body of the defender, and the back of the end zone. High level of difficulty. And again, McKenna just trusting her receiver, putting that up early.
With the amount of turns in this game so far, it is really low scoring, 4-3. I feel like Surge has not had a game like this yet, so it's really nice to get this at this point. Also talking to Coach Taylor before the season, she was saying it's nice to have strong opponents at the end of your season. You want that, but it is also interesting to kind of play them all in a row and not everyone in the PUL can do some damage, but tougher opponents all in one string can be difficult to plan for as a coach.
Yeah, some of these matchups, again, based on previous seasons. And as we said, just even last season, 4-2 were the Philadelphia Surge. But because the Gridlock were 5-1 and Indy Red were 5-2, they missed the postseason, feeling like they just done everything they could to make it. Cartagena for Chin. Roberska. And here's that small ball that we had mentioned as the Surge playing a bit of a junky D in a person-to-person. Inside break by Krebs. Now Lamb. And wonderful D just coming in to slap it down was Semper. And interesting to note, so many of these Surge players, not huge block numbers this season, and certainly in this game, a lot of those numbers being padded because of all the, as you mentioned, windy Ds that have been forced to be made. This is a big shot going up. And Chin, did they come through? And Moeller?
Might be, I can't tell if it's a strip or a regular foul. Maybe thought had hands on it. Or it looks like maybe got arms knocked out of the way.
And the observers are going to talk to it, and we'll get a second look at it here. Yeah, really hard to tell if Chin had gotten even a fingertip to it before Moeller was claiming that she had full possession. Moeller, a longtime member of the Philadelphia Ultimate scene as well, and from Radnor, Pennsylvania. And the observers rule that Chin got a clean block on it.
That's one of those where you have a chance to tie the game. You're close to your end zone. I don't want a team to play scared, but you also want to say, how do we convert this? We have to convert this at a high percentage. We should take high percentage throws. We should find open people. Gridlock has been tight. There's been so many turns. That's just a choice there in tight coverage where you probably don't take that shot trying to tie a game.
And there's the wind giving it just back to the Surge. And should mention, too, on that shot to Moeller, and due to the height discrepancy between Chin and Moeller, if the wind hadn't had a part to play, I think that one's an easy catch for Moeller above Chin. And we've got an injury for the Gridlock. Again, that is the aforementioned Emma Chin. They are exiting the game, and it's going to be Jazerski. A swap as well for Philly. Melinda Alvey replaced by Grace Maroon. So again, Gridlock trying to go up by 2 again. Close out this 0 point. Still 7:40 left to go in the second, so plenty of time. And this is really the first point we've seen either team use a lot of these short passes, and it leads to a goal for Grace Connerly. Chapel Hill product.
Those are the types of swings. These are the types of swings in game that end up mattering. You have a chance as Surge to tie it. Instead, there's a turn, and you're able to just convert as Gridlock there. Not a lot of pressure on you.
And you've been seeing it since her Binghamton days, but that inside forehand break by Krebs, you prepare for it, you're ready for it, especially on the mark, but it's so difficult to stop. And again, you think you've got the right position, you're in the right space, but you don't want to give up, obviously, anything easy to the foreside, so you're going to continue to keep that mark up. But that Krebs inside forehand break just has opened up so much for Gridlock over the years. Former Binghamton player made college nationals, which, of course, D3 college nationals taking place this weekend. And then next week, we will have, again, Division I college nationals. You really do get the sense, Andrea, that between all the different ultimate happening, again, the PUL and the UFA doing their thing in the quarter of the way through their season, as well as, again, club kicking off soon, as that's another turn for the Surge. It's almost a perfect time. There's almost too much ultimate. Is that hearsay to say?
No, definitely not. There's already talk of burnout. It's just so much at one time, and the PUL has intentionally, so far, tried to avoid everything else with club, with college. They try and start early and end early so that players don't have to be as decisive, and they can just say, oh, I can play PUL and then I get to focus on club instead of tons of overlap. But with college, playing all three, and a lot of players are playing all three now, it's a lot of ultimate.
As this live broadcast is brought to you by the Premier Ultimate League, the PUL is a 501c6 nonprofit. This league has been community funded since day one. We are so grateful for the support. We ask you consider donating to help us continue to transform and fulfill our mission. Head to PremierUltimateLeague.com to donate today. I saw a little bit, it seemed like frustration by Cassie Brown as the timeout was called for New York to get that O-line back on the field. And again, Cassie Brown is someone that is just so successful with the disc in her hands.
That's one of those decisions as a coach. You struggle with it.
Yeah.
Do you want to give your D-line a chance? They're pretty close. They probably need the reps because there's sometimes you can't bail them out with a timeout. So let them get the practice, let them get the reps. And then you put your O-line in, and there's a turn like that. That happens immediately. And then the defense is like, it's just hard because you don't want to have animosity against your teammates. But you're like, we were flowing, we were moving. You stopped us to put these people in, and then they turned it. It's just such a tough call.
And this is a gift for the Gridlock. Cartagena right on the doorstep. And that'll be one of the easier goals of Krebs' career. So it works out in New York's favor when all is said and done. And the Gridlock have taken a 6-3 lead, which honestly coming in, Andrew, with the resume is a little bit surprising that the Gridlock have been able to create this distance. But and you look at the wind playing as much of a factor in this game as the Surge and the Gridlock, it feels like.
Yeah, looking at the resumes, I mean, they're both strong. Gridlock has a PUL title. Surge doesn't.
They do.
They're no underdog. I think they're both very comparable teams. Both have a lot of star power. Both have, obviously really strong histories. They even have histories overlapping. So before Surge was a team, 5 or 6 of us played for Gridlock for 2 to 3 years. A couple of people played for Shadow as well. So as the league has expanded, there's a lot of overlap of people who used to drive here for practice and play for this team, and now find their way on Philly.
And to take that a step further, and this is not a compliment to I-95, but it's great to see that between New York and Philadelphia and D.C., this Northeast corridor obviously had enough talent for multiple teams. And again, just seeing the success, as you mentioned, of these teams in the PUL, particularly here in the East Coast. Let's see if the Surge can respond here. Close, and now Cunningham out of Washington, D.C. Speaking of the Northeast corridor, the Ohio State product. Cunningham again.
Bit of a dominator set there. A lot of handler motion from Liang, Cunningham, Maroon. The cutters downfield were out of the play, giving them a lot of space to work that handler motion.
Well done by Liang, finding Wagner to finish off the play. And again, as a cutter, too, for Wagner in that situation, when they do play dominator, the whole point is to stay active, not fall asleep, and be prepared for that final cut. So Philly, and when they've had those clean holds, This one's still a dirty hold, but when they have had clean holds, it looks pretty smooth. Again, going back to the Milwaukee game for both these teams, for Philadelphia, 13 of those 16 holds against Milwaukee in that 26-14 win were clean. And meanwhile, for the Gridlock, and taking on Milwaukee that same weekend, 21-10 win, 12 breaks. But both teams, interestingly enough, Milwaukee and New York, both had 5 clean holds of the 9 holds. So interesting that Philadelphia just had such domination in that game, whereas for the Gridlock, a lot of it was taking care of business defensively and getting those breaks. And I think, again, if you're going to ask the Gridlock coaching staff, if you make them choose whether or not they want to win by their offense, just getting clean holds and make it a war of attrition, I think they might go with that. A lot less headaches for sure. Lamb thought they had some space downfield, but that Surge zone doing a good job to shut things down. Cartagena, as Lamb could not handle that pass. This D-line for Philadelphia thinking about going right up with it. Kashyap. Over to Rayo.
Surge has no timeouts left, so not one of those where you're looking to put the O-line in. This is one of those where you want to give your D-line the reps. They need to convert. Something I talked to Coach Dave Bear about before the game is how are we going to convert on these turns? That's going to be really important for this game, and a perfect opportunity to show that here.
A conversation behind the play.
A push-off foul
is going to be called. Sam Harris with the call.
With Abby Thompson on the goal line.
And here's Abby Thompson, another Ohio State product. Thompson couldn't find the final pass. Now McKenna. McKenna goes over the top and toe in the back of the end zone. Another one. A beauty from McKenna.
Epstein just was able to find that space back there, able to not pull defenders towards her. Everyone's sort of staring at the disc, able to stand back there. And bit of a tough catch. It was pretty high. Had to also mind the line. But an aggressive, bold choice by McKenna, and those pay off.
Faye Epstein from Teaneck, New Jersey, in her first season with Philadelphia, and she has fit in perfectly. Already a plus 15 this season, a product out of Brown. And, you know, the Brown women's program is certainly, I think, one of the more underrated in the college scene. The men's program at Brown gets all the attention, national champions and all that stuff, but Brown has just continued to produce a ton of good players from both, again, the men and the women's programs.
Epstein leading Surge in blocks this season, tied for first in the league of all teams in blocks. So really nice to see a breakout player like that.
Yeah, again, I think she might be getting a little more attention, if not for the likes of Lindsay McKenna and Grace Maroon with all her assists. And Surge, of course, at 4-0, pretty close to the top of a lot of the statistical categories across the league this season.
Wonder how that will change after this game. Our clean holds, our hold percentage, our completion percentage, probably all going to...
Yeah, I would say if it's just completion percentage that you're looking at, maybe that would just be the one to ignore. But, again, plenty of defensive numbers to talk about in this game. Krabs with the right hand on the layout and immediately whips the inside blade to Waverka. And the crowd here is, again, people still trickling in here at Messina Field. I heard a collective "what power" from some of her club teammates and the like.
I don't even know that she was fully stood up yet by the time she released that.
Yeah, that's one of those. Just show the crowd that she has it, whether or not it's completed or not. Faking a big huck there. Now Moeller behind the disc. Epstein couldn't connect with it, and to finish off the play was Connerly. 3:43 left to go in the second quarter. Gridlock looking to extend their lead, which Philadelphia has cut back to just one. Cartagena. Hecko still not in. And the easy dish for Shaw. So it's a +2 again.
Gridlock hole with
And have to mention on this hot day, too, the longer that Philadelphia O-line has to remain on the field, it's something to take into account. Yes, there was that, we'll say, extra long point there in the first quarter, but, again, fatigue with his O-line. And where do you stand for coaches on, we talked about that, also the timeout that was taken for the Gridlock D-line, but where do you stand on choosing to continue to play a D-line to keep the opposing O-line on the field and tire them out?
Yeah, somewhere in between. I think there's a time and place for it. I don't know that you need to get into that much of a head game the whole time. I think you just sort of want to. They've also had enough players crossing over on both McKenna and Maroon and Krebs and Jezierski kind of all playing everything at this point that you're probably just targeting certain people and not necessarily thinking about D-line, O-line. But Surge has, their O-line has been off for a couple points there because they don't have timeouts to sub in. That gives them a fresher look here on the O-line.
Now, it does appear that this offensive point for Philadelphia is a bit of a mixed line, a fluid O-line, if you will. So, this time around, no McKenna out there. Cunningham has moved the disc really well when given the opportunity today. See that little nice lefty backhand, which, of course, Liang is no secret to as a regular lefty. But again, Liang then with the little shuffle righty backhand. Cunningham almost two into traffic to Hiranet. Work it around the horn, and again, not necessarily the traditional O-line for Philadelphia, but that flex offense from Philly looking really good and moving the desk well.
Yeah, I think it was just McKenna for Bonacy, but that swap there, able to put in, give McKenna a break because she is crossing over a lot. She is playing a lot of D points. Maroon also playing both. Very patient there from the Surge O-line.
2:42 remaining in the first half. A 7-6 game. So fortunately, again, for fans of the PUL, you're getting at least a tight and tough game that you thought it would be. And based on weather and different conditions, we could see something entirely different 2 weeks from now, June the 6th, in Week 10, the final week of the PUL season before the playoffs kick off. That, again, will be New York at Philadelphia. And before that, the Gridlock in Week 9. So, again, this is Week 7. So 2 weeks from now at the Indy Red. And a lot of these players you mentioned for New York also, when they took that 3-goal lead playing two ways between Hecko and Krebs, as well as Sam Harris. That pull will stay up there. But does not stay in bounds. As far as duration of time in the air, you can hit that checkbox as Connor Lee will now have the opportunity to center the disc. And the clock continues to run, though. Now 2:19. Connolly to Harris. McKenna playing this D point against Harris. Krebs to Lamb. A lot of short field stuff, but the turn. Kashup with block number 6. Now Kashup against Lamb. Up over the crowd with two Gridlock shirts around her. Kashup. Now Surge with good field positioning. Kashup again. Back-to-back sensational catches. But can the Surge finish? Tie this game back up at 7? Yes, they can. The break for the Surge, and we are knotted up with 1:29 remaining in the first half.
First Surge break of the game? Second Surge break. Really nice throw there from McKenna, opening up the whole field. It is in traffic, it is under coverage, but you give your teammates a chance to make a play, even if it's under pressure. Really, Nina putting in overtime on that play, catching a lot of things under pressure with a lot of people around her.
And Kashup between the D.C. area and the Philadelphia area have been playing ultimate for a better part at a high level of more than a decade. Originally from California, on her second season with Philadelphia. UC Davis product. And I find the way that, again, Andrea, at this point, that ultimate and the techniques, and I think probably social media and the online world of this thing called the internet have really helped this out. But there used to be a thing back in the day where you'd have Boston Ultimate was this way, Colorado Ultimate was this way, and the Bay Area Ultimate was this way. But now you just see such a confluence of all these different techniques, as we say, and it's a little easier for these different players to, again, travel across the country and fit right into a new system 4,000 miles away.
You also see people playing out of region a lot more, playing for other cities, coming. That didn't used to be a thing. You kind of played where you were. You made your team better. Now people want to play on the best team no matter where that is. If that's across the country, you'll make it work. So there's so much more of that being incorporated into these systems that have been one way, and that helps infuse new life and strategy into all those teams as well.
And I have to say, both on the men's side of things and then also on the women and gender-expansive side of things, some of the best players in the world, well, they're international players at this point. Again, from the men's side, you're thinking of some of the Belgians, and I think in the women and gender-expansive game, one of the best players might just be German. Here's Krebs for Sam Harris. Snatches it out of the air. Was looking Hecko downfield, and instead it's going to be Connor Lee, and could not make the layout catch, and the immediate injury is going to be required. I think that just came from, might have had the wind knocked out of her as she landed on the disc.
Another Krebs off-balance throw there, sort of firing right away, going to the ground this time instead of standing up.
That has been the risk and reward for Jolie Krebs, and I think, again, any coach is going to give her the keys to an offense because of all the good that she does. And sometimes, and I think, again, when she has the disc, her teammates or new teammates might not know what to expect. But again, teammates who played with her for a few years now have learned what to expect, and Connor Lee knew that she'd have to sell out there on that bid. Now the Surge. Another break opportunity here. And so McKenna was playing D-line, and now the fortuitous nature of having McKenna on an O-line.
Really nice edge throw there from McKenna. Found the open spot.
But Abby Thompson looking back to McKenna as Jezierski directing traffic, waiting for Krebs. And this is knocked out of the air by Taylor Conroy. Her first block of the season. And Conroy has been one of those bit players who week after week is kind of waiting for her opportunity and getting in this game with some other members of the regular game day squad unavailable.
Conroy is an athletic, physical defender, able to take up a lot of space and good in the air, good jumper, well-rounded. One of the Pittsburgh Parcha additions to the team. There's a lot of Pittsburgh overlap on this Philly team this year. 4 or 5 players from that area, from the Parcha crew, are now on Surge this year.
Jezierski looking for the layout, couldn't get it. And I think there is something to be said, again, how both these teams kind of set up the depth of their team with, not say the bottom of their rosters, but a ton of players who were just really, really athletic, as Hecko maxes one right into the path of the aforementioned Conroy. And Conroy almost puts up a beauty, but Harris is there for the layout D. And that will end this first half of action, as that was the last possession. A last chance to see this one. Again, Hecko giving Conroy a gift. Conroy's backhand. She tried to put some lift underneath it, but still the wind pushed it down.
Really nice hustle there from Harris, running the full field, able to take up space. Rushed by Conroy. Not the great play end of the season, but end of the half, But great of Harris to finish that play and make sure she was there.
Conroy still a terrific pickup for the Surge, who are 7-7 at the half with the Gridlock, as we give a huge shout-out to our Gridlock sponsor, Well by Messer, led by Dr. Caroline Messer. They are the premier metabolic and wellness health center for New York and Connecticut. Achieve your goals with their personalized mind and body approach to health. Visit Well by Messer today. And Urso Education Group is a proud supporter of the Gridlock. Urso helps students in grades 5 through college sharpen their math skills with personalized tutoring. Check them out today and help your students stay at the top of their game. A huge thanks as well to IDA Sports for hooking NY Gridlock up with cleats this season and making sure our athletes are ready to compete at the highest level. If you're looking for new cleats this season, you can support New York Gridlock and get yourself a pair using our code nygridlock.com. And the NY Gridlock is teaming up with Salt Athletic to keep our gear fresh and our game strong. Their odor-blocking Aero Case cleat bag is the ultimate sidekick for every athlete because the only thing that should be unstoppable is you. Use NY Gridlock 15 at checkout for 15% off. And for those of you watching at home, we are sorry you couldn't join us. We'd like you to please consider donating $20, the price of a game ticket, to help support player travel and training. We thank you so much. And we do thank you for that first half, and we will be back in just about 13 minutes and change for the second half of this tantalizing PUL East, or I should say North Division matchup between the Philadelphia Surge and the New York Gridlock, all tied up at 7s here in New Rochelle.
Volar en un avión era mi mayor sueño. ¿Cómo se sentiría estar en el cielo? Me imaginaba surcando las nubes. Para mí, eso era libertad. Desde pequeña, supe que no encajaba como las demás chicas. Cuando empecé a jugar, era la única chica del equipo. El simple hecho de estar en el campo de juego era un acto de resistencia. Tuve que luchar por obtener esta oportunidad. No nos define nuestro pasado, sino la fuerza que se necesita para seguir adelante y crear algo mejor.
Back here in beautiful New Rochelle, New York, just a few miles away from the Big Apple, where most of the players on this New York Gridlock team, if not all, reside, and playing host to the Philadelphia Surge with this game at 7-7. At one point, the Gridlock had opened up a 6-3 lead over the Surge, but I've got to do it, no pun intended, but they surged back. But also, have to mention, Andrea, one of the first times this season that the Surge have found themselves in a hole that they've had to dig out of. And, of course, that's valuable experience looking ahead to the postseason in a few weeks.
Yes, really good reps for Surge there. Really good reps for Surge there, being able to, find what it's like. What is it going to take to pull out of that? Had some tight points and, heavily contested in other games, but definitely not like this.
Gridlock starting this third quarter on offense. So with their typical O-line out there. Connerly shooting end zone for Hecko. Hecko against Kashup. And Hecko with the box out on the celebration.
Kashup taking good position there, was sort of right in line with her. Hecko able to use a little bit of a contact there to push off of it and read the disc at the end. Closes well here and then kind of puts her on her shoulder to give herself some space.
Yeah, not too many players can do that to a player like Kashup, who, as you mentioned, so good with that swim move to bring that left shoulder inside, but Hecko just bodying out. And as we said, Hecko, an entirely different role asked to do this season and had a lot to do, again, with the Jesus. Hecko has been a O-line, or D-line player, I should say, since arriving from Seattle. But this season moved over to that O-line to become that primary, I want to say cutter, but truly finishing option because of the way that the Gridlock do play so much of that dominator set. And now we'll be back on D here.
And we see Hecko on this D-line as well. So playing back-to-back
over,
points, yeah. Able to finish, and then you're going to run her again.
And when you have those dynamic athletes, again, like a McKenna, like a Hecko, that are just so good and terrific on both sides of the ball. Again, we saw McKenna right before that half ended, jump back to the D-line as well.
She's back on the O-line now. I feel like coming out of a half, we saw both teams run to the shade, run to the tent, sitting under there. Now that they're refreshed, you can play a couple back-to-back points right out of half. Early in the third quarter, you might see some longer points, and then you don't play them. You specialize them after that. But allowing them to play back-to-back, especially after they had the longest rest, can be really useful.
Picked off on the first throw, Brown. And Jezierski was looking Ashley right. Instead, a simple one up the sideline. Trying to force it in for this break. Bianca Champenois. And it's Champenois in her first professional game finding Abby Hecko, and that was the exuberant response you heard from her team. And Champenois finding out that she was going to be playing in this game in the last few hours. And has responded with her first PUL assist to Hecko, and there's an early break here to make it 9-7 again. So seeing this O-line for Philadelphia with a short point there are going to return right to the line.
Keeping the discs running, that game going smooth.
Again, for Philadelphia, at some point, again, you're only down by 2. But with the end of quarters being the last possession, it does mean that you can't use those end of quarters as an equalizer to try to find, we'll say, a free point here or there. So they got to take care of business here between the lines. Jezierski. Pull will be fielded by Liang.
Jezierski also playing back-to-back points. Again, really quick point there for the D-line. Didn't do much. That's really beneficial for a gridlock team. You allow one of your best players to play a couple points in a row, and you're keeping them short, and you're converting at a high rate.
K-Spa, who, again, familiar with a number of these teammates, including her club teammate with New York Bent, Abby Hecko. Also played Philadelphia Amp, the mixed team there in Philadelphia.
Also played gridlock.
Also played gridlock. The probably most evident New York connection. Cunningham on that sideline, guarded by Chin. And K-Spa couldn't handle that one. So this gridlock team with an opportunity for back-to-back break points can open up again to tie their largest lead of this contest, which was 3. Cassie Brown, that's a nice pass on the sideline for Chin to run into, and Chin immediately knew that she floated that one up, and a good job by the Surge to swarm that disc. Couldn't see the last hand, but I know it's one of those 4 white shirts who were surrounding it. K-Spa. And that got caught up in the wind too, but coming back to the disc, here in net. And the Surge on the doorstep. Remember, this is an 0 point for them. And finding their way in. So probably not how they drew it up, but they all count the same. Well done by the Surge to have that patience, as Maroon, of course, as she usually is vital to the Surge putting the disc into the end zone.
Maroon was also vital on that block there. Really got in the way of Jezierski, able to stop her from making that catch, and then takes off downfield and is able to come down with the play like that. Hironet making that grab in a lot of traffic. Those two have played together for a couple of years now. Knows that she might S-cut there to hit back, and a great break there from Hironet.
Yeah, Sarah Hironet has been around this game so long, originally from Canton, Michigan State from 2007 to 2010, then Lehigh in the Lehigh Valley from 2010 to 2012. And my one experience playing against Sarah Hironet was back in her Lehigh days. Now, again, dating myself, 16, 17 years ago in Lehigh Valley Summer League. And I can tell you, I already knew I was done and dusted dealing with Sarah Hironet all the way back then.
I remember when she first came on the Phillies scene, there was a player on AMP. His name was Ben Pellig, and they were on Summer League teams. He's like, you got to check out this person. We're like, Who? We've never heard of her. And ended up becoming a really important player for AMP that year.
There's Krebs with the drop. And so Philly now with a chance to tie us up at 9 with a potential break, but Muller, that one slipped out of her hand. And Lamb. I think originally the players thought that was an errant whistle.
Looks like the player's cleat fell off,
but that is a injury timeout. So that does not, to my understanding, that does not go against the team as a timeout. That is an official timeout due to an injury stop. I mean, not a injury stoppage, but a equipment stoppage, which does also not force a substitution. So Abby Thompson will stay on the field there after losing her cleat.
Pick calls, players will find their positions, but this will stay with Krebs.
And maybe that is something that, again, Eddie Lamb, they could brag about after the game. Hey, I cut my defender so hard their cleat popped off. Shaw looking for the end zone. Heckel will have to come up with a big play, but instead it's Harnage right in the back of the end zone there.
Nice read and peel off from Harnage there.
And Anna Harnage in her second season with Philadelphia. And haven't had to say her name too much today. But it's been a fun matchup against Waverka. Able to bring it in as the wind picks up again. Again, you can hear it. The wind's starting to howl. Nice job that time by Conroy to keep her footing. And then Lamb coming over.
We can hear it from the stands. There was a timeout.
And before that throw got off, the Gridlock able to call, or rather the Surge able to call the timeout. So, again, well done by that coaching staff, including Bobby Roos and Dave Baer and Parifko and Wary, just to call that right at the death before the turnover. And from dietary to performance psychology, Baker Street Health keeps the Gridlock moving. Visit them across New Jersey or via telehealth in 35 states. Baker Street Health, comprehensive care for our team from head to toe. And founded in 2020, Discover Diversity creates spaces where black players can show up fully, play freely, and experience a genuine sense of belonging, especially within Ultimate Frisbee. Through intentional events and playing opportunities, we center community, leadership, and joy while celebrating the talent and resilience of black players. Our goal is to expand access, champion collaboration, and inspire the next generation of athletes. When we talk about the next generation of athletes, again, there's a bunch of players here in this game making their PUL debuts. And you get the sense that nowadays, every time you watch a PUL game or a WL game, you are already seeing the next generation of future stars. As that is a turnover. Semper real close to getting it on the second attempt. Now Krebs. Into the end zone, the layout. Who else but Abby Hecko? In the air, on the ground, and on her birthday.
Bunch of unforced errors there from Surge. Gridlock doing a great job capitalizing on all of them, not giving the disc back. We saw in the first half, Gridlock gave the disc back a couple times after they would get it. This half, much cleaner, much better, and capitalizing on those Surge executions.
So Surge looking for a way, just again, settle things down. And we have seen the adjustments in the second half, too. It does feel like, maybe on purpose or not, the Gridlock are playing much more, we mentioned in that first quarter, not a lot of small ball. But it feels like here now in the third quarter, we're seeing a bit more small ball from them. Philadelphia is still willing to take those long shots and not having the same success that they've had so far, again, this season, especially on those deep balls, which even in the rain have been so successful already this year. So after that New York goal, comes Philadelphia again, looking not to fall down by 3 again, just keep themselves within striking distance. McKenna. Nice break throw to Cunningham. Important throw back to the center for Cunningham. K-Spa. K-Spa looking end zone, and that will work. Grace Maroon again. Visionary throw from K-Spa. The Surge keep this close. It's 10-9. 6:11 left to go in the third.
Bit of a dicey choice there, throwing over 2 Gridlock defenders who are in the area, but you're looking at Maroon with space running onto it, showing a little bit of edge on that just over both of them. Maroon able to come down with it.
Can you hear the power of the wind that is just beginning to pick up here in the second half, and how good the edge of that disc, as you mentioned, had to be to make sure it didn't get caught in the wind and she could find that window. So that was the offensive answer that the Surge needed, just marching downfield for the hold. We sit at 10-9 in this game. And again, the Stars have started to come out here in the second half. A little more Abby Hecko playing both ways as she's back there on the O-line. I wonder if that was the question for Brittany Taylor pregame. Coach, all I want for my birthday is to play both ways. Just I want as many points as possible. I'm a little bit of the opposite.
I doubt that. I doubt you.
I'm a little bit the opposite, Andrew. I would be more say, hey, Coach, it is my birthday. I would love to get a win and play as little as possible today in this heat. Again, we're currently sitting at 86 degrees here at Facina Field. And also have to make mention, too, on this turf field, it can be a bit hotter on field, on the turf, than it is even in the stands. So likely closer to 88 to 90 degrees on the field.
The breeze useful for a little bit of air, a little bit of breathing room, but making the game on the field a little more difficult.
Connerly to center. With 5:30 remaining here in the third quarter.
How do you think the Gridlock office has changed with some of their players they're missing? I know Valeria can be usually a D-line player, also goes O-line. Is this pretty much the same handler set that you've seen in past games?
Well, with who's been available this season, again, they've had players in and out, but this has largely been the team, other than, again, downfield cutter, as we do have a player on the ground. So with 5:05 remaining, training staff will come out. And we will step aside now with this game 10-9, Gridlock up. Back here, so Connerly taken off. We're getting word that it seemed to just be a cramp, and that was something to consider as well here. We were talking about the heat here in the second half. And the body's starting to get dehydrated, and Connerly hopes he's all right to continue, potentially return to this game. Cartagena. It's over the head of Waverka. That one might have got to Hecko, but Moeller was also in the area there. But Waverka getting a tip on it led to a turnover. Now for Philadelphia, if they can go the length of the field here, they could tie this one up at 10. And so that is why Philadelphia uses their second timeout to inject their O-line back onto the field, knowing this kind of is that moment here, 4.5 to go in the third.
Definitely an inflection point, but also using your final timeout with a whole quarter left to go is an interesting move. It's been a close game so far, at least the last 20-plus minutes of the actual game time. You now have no more timeout, so you have to get it done with the people on the field, which is both a good thing. We want to see how they perform, but you also can't give players a break. Give them a breather. Change the lines. So it does prevent a different type of issue and strategy for Surge.
Well, you say interesting. I would even say to that point a little bit risky. And speaking of risk, very little risk if you use the Discraft Ultra Star. The Discraft Ultra Star is the official disc of the Premier Ultimate League. Discraft, the world leader in disc sports. So here comes that O-line for Philadelphia. And to your point, there so many chances that have the Gridlock had in this game to extend that lead from 3, but the Surge just continuing to hang around. Also a big question, too, for this game. As much as the Surge would have wanted with that 4-0 record and having New York once more, you get the sense that because New York had lost to D.C., that was their loss, that Philadelphia playing with a little bit more, or let's say less risk, this game, statistically at least, having an outsized matter of importance to New York to get a win, even more than Philadelphia, especially because, again, this is at home at New York, where Philly will then have the sweet confines of the city of brotherly love. Up to McKenna. McKenna's going to air it out. It's K-Spa against Sam Harris. Harris cuts it off and comes down with it. And an immediate call for a travel on Sam Harris. So Harris doing the hard part, but then committing the travel.
Observer upholding the call there.
Harris disagreed, but again, the observer had, I would say, best position that time, right behind Harris. So now if you're New York, though, do you consider taking a timeout here? Or with Abby Hecko and Jezierski, you're just going to, as they say, let the D-line cook. Jezierski, Hecko.
I think when you have players like both of them on your D-line, you're not necessarily worried about that. You want to give them, you want the disc in their hands.
Here's Nikki Hare. Again, that Hecko-McKenna matchup, awful fun. Hecko with the break. Hare in the middle of the field. And Lamb also a regular member of the O-line. And there is that Gridlock timeout. And I think that, again, that's the key for the Gridlock coaching staff, just waiting for that D-line to get stuck. And when that first moment came when they truly got stuck, the stall count would go more than 4 or 5, then it would be time to change personnel.
It seemed like there was a little bit, like Nikki Hare seemed confident with the disc, wasn't super flustered, but downfield there wasn't as much motion. There wasn't any on-time cuts. So that's what you're looking at. You're not just saying, is my player with the disc under pressure? You're looking upfield and, like, there's no cuts being generated. Maybe everyone needs a different look here, a different break. And Captain Nikki Hare, I feel like has been a glue player for this team, was on the team back when I played in 2019, has been there for so many years. Now a captain, always knows the right place to be, finds the right spot all the time, is a staple player for this Gridlock, even though it doesn't light up the stat sheet. It's just a really important player for them that has been a glue throughout every season.
Yeah, 8 seasons out of Bergen, New Jersey. And, yeah, Nikki Hare, the definition of a glue player. Cartagena, the definition of a star handler with the disc. Forced back to Hecko. Hecko with the break to Harris. Harris locked in with Krebs, and Krebs over the top. It will float, but only into the hands of Waverka. Big break by New York. As remember, on this same point, the Surge had called that timeout. Then New York called theirs, and now it's 11-9, New York. So the gamble does not pay off for Philadelphia. And so much of the O-line personnel on this point is going to head right back to the line here. Should be noted, too, again, last time these two teams did not play each other but played against Milwaukee, and Philadelphia put up 26 points. New York put up 21, and it's a reminder, too, Andrea, that you kind of play the conditions as much as you do the opponent, and score lines can be much different. You've got to take a different approach from game to game in terms of how fluid and how much you're willing to take opportunities for big gains. Laszlo has been a different PUL as the Astra moved back to the WL, so the North Division and the South had 5 teams each now. North Division being, again, New York, Indy Red, Surge, Strike, and Monarchs. And the South Division having DC. K-Spa to the end zone. And the Surge immediately downfield. Hiranet finishes the play, and it's back to 11-10.
That was nice patience there from K-Spa. Didn't shoot it. Hiranet was open for a while. You don't see her throw it in the first look. She takes a beat, sees her, gets more space, puts a little bit of that outside edge on it.
Yeah, we've seen K-Spa now, especially in this second half, seems to have found that edge, as you mentioned. These 2 assists here in the third in particular. And still we sit at 11-10, and it does feel like for Philadelphia, even though they've used their 2 timeouts, they're just kind of waiting for that opportunity.
It's going to need to happen from the D-line, maybe an obvious statement, but you have to convert from your D-line at this point. You have to be good with the disc. You have to make the right choices. Whether that's a riskier away shot or not, it has to be the right decision in that moment to the right players. They haven't broken out from this sort of 1-goal purgatory that they've been in for almost 2 quarters now.
We've got 2:12 remaining here in the third, and still our fourth quarter of action to look forward to. And again, a reminder that in Week 10, we can look forward to this same matchup. It's New York at Philadelphia before these two teams will be meeting, or potentially these two teams. Again, for New York, they still could mathematically be knocked out of postseason contention. Sam Harris, a catch behind them. Harris through the hands of Lamb, and as you mentioned, there's this opportunity for that Surge D-line to tie this one up under 2 minutes. Moeller downfield. It's Kashyap wide open. Thompson, the one downfield as Kashyap real quick to Conroy. Right back into Kashyap. That's what you mentioned. We're knotted up at 11.
That's exactly the play that you want there. Moeller has that really far away throw, really smart and on time of Kashyap to take the field space. Her defenders are behind. She looks for the opportunity to stretch the field, catching without a lot of pressure there, like we saw her do a couple of the other plays. So really, really nice there. And then a lot of people following the play, so they have some options there.
Also should mention, too, around the league, we had Atlanta and Nashville earlier today, while Minnesota and Raleigh taking place as we speak. That's the other action around the PUL. Then next week, you have Atlanta at Austin to look forward to, and Indy v. Milwaukee at Breeze Stevens Field. For again, we mentioned Week 9, it's New York, Indy, and Raleigh, D.C., before a big Week 10. Atlanta, Indy, Austin, Minnesota, Austin, Milwaukee, Nashville, D.C., and, of course, at the South Philly Super Site, Gridlock against the Surge.
Philly running back, a lot of the same D-line there, except for Kashyap. Almost everyone else is the same.
Kashyap certainly putting the shift with her legs in that last one. And for Lamb, it's back-to-back drops for her, or rather them. And now the chance for the Surge to get a lead. Forcing this O-line to defend. And the Surge put it in just over a minute to go in the third. It was Lisa Dang to finish it. The Surge rookie. And a big moment for her.
First lead of the game, a huge point in the game with only a minute left in the third quarter. One of those where you want to run the clock. You don't want to give Gridlock a chance there, but also we'll see what Gridlock does here with a minute left. You don't want to give it back. You kind of want to run the possession, but without stalling. Really nice up line here from Dang. Starts the cut up line, long up line from Alvey, and then just keeps finishing the cut. Able to close out and pick up that speed right to the end zone.
They create separation on Lamb, and Lamb on that drop again in back-to-back points. They just could not handle that pass from Sidursky. And we were making mention, too, between Sidursky and Krebs, some of your best disc movers, they do put a little bit of extra something on it, and you can have those unexpected passes that slice through the wind like that if you're not at full focus when you go to catch it. So now Philly with that lead. And New York, I don't know if the full pressure is there because, again, they still play Philly in a few weeks' time and still Indy on the schedule, but pressure might start to mount. And their season, 2-1 right now, could still very much be hanging in the balance. And for Philadelphia, going 5-0, it would just guarantee them that first spot in the North Division. Here's Jazerski and Hecko. We've seen her hit the ground. We've seen her hit the air. And Abby Hecko has really been the superstar here in the third. Knots it back up at 12 with 44 seconds remaining. And Jazerski had this one inside. I wouldn't call that necessarily a blade, but Hecko backtracking the whole time, had the beat on it, had the read on it. Just had to go up strong to finish.
I also wouldn't say that was exactly the flight that Jazerski meant to put on that, but Hecko able to read it under pressure, make a really strong grab.
We saw that Gridlock defense early in the game, at least in the end zone that they were pulling from, go with a zone look. And we haven't really seen too much of it, even though the wind here in the second half has picked up and then fallen back again. Feels like both teams have just gone with the person defense since that first half. And I'll have to ask you, Andrea, as far as, again, there are moments to use those zone and those junk looks, but do you like to throw that variation in, or do you feel like at a point where things get really, really tight and you start to get familiar, you just have to go person the whole time and make it a mano-a-mano war?
I usually default to that a little bit more than a zone. Obviously, conditions matter, but somewhat neutral conditions, I would rather say when it is tighter, let's not give anyone space. In a zone, you're just giving people space that allows open stall counts, free resets. Again, condition dependent, I would usually lean towards person, especially when it's tighter.
Surge moving this disc really well again. McKenna will have to toe the sideline, and that's out of bounds. So the Gridlock with an opportunity to break. They've got around 20 seconds to do it.
Also in a timed game, factoring that in, you want to run the clock. You want them to be slower here. You want to make sure you don't give them a really long possession. So a zone could be interesting look for either team.
Yeah, remember, this is last position as well. So there's 8 seconds here until the clock hits 0, and then it'll be last possession. So it might be fortuitous as well for the Gridlock just to let this clock hit 0, which it did, and now this will be the last possession. So it's either the Gridlock go up 13-12, or we're going to be knotted up heading into the fourth. Cassie Brown, she's got Jezierski going deep. This will be low and knocked down by Maroon, and Maroon has had some important blocks here in this contest to keep us knotted up at 12. And we knew that here in the PUL in the North Division, teams are separated by the smallest of margins.
That chance there at the end, that's one of those that you do that in a buzzer beater, you maybe take that shot, but right now when you have the whole place to go and it's tied, and that shot from Cassie Brown seems just a little bit unnecessary, a little forced, a little rushed.
Well, we've got 12 minutes left to go to decide this Northeast rivalry, and we're going nowhere. Be right back on the other side of the break here with PUL action. So for those joining us, again, I want to thank you for joining us here for the Game of the Week. And the Game of the Week, again, brought to you for free on YouTube for this PUL North Division matchup with Dan Hilton and Andrea Sabato. It feels like the heat, as you mentioned, just become a dry heat. The wind has continued to swirl. But at this point, fourth quarter is where there's kind of no excuses. You kind of got to figure things out. And it felt like New York had something figured out in the first half of that third. Then it felt like Philadelphia definitely figured things out there late in the third, and that is what had us tied up at 12.
Yeah, you should be used to the conditions now, not excuses. You should know where to put the throws, what matchups are open. We also see Lisa Dang for the first time on the O-line in this game, has played exclusively D points until this moment. Dang coming over from Shadow with a lot of experience, a lot of high-level experience, played in a lot of pressure games. So moving her over is a good, interesting strategy point here from Surge. A little bit of a different look, a different bit of handler power there.
Yeah, and really good patience there from Dang. You could tell it was a high stall count from Cassie Brown. It's a bang-bang play with Jezerski. Probably got away with a foul there on Maroon. It's a switch downfield for the Gridlock. Well done. As you mentioned, Dang is really just orchestrating so much on this point. And Dang again, a low shot. Still one pass away for Hiranet. And Hiranet will finish to McKenna. Maybe a rather quiet day for McKenna, but her teammates have really picked up the output as Philadelphia goes ahead 13-12 here to start the fourth.
Quiet stat-wise for McKenna, but doing a lot of work in the midfield, putting a lot of pressure, opening up the field with her throws. They haven't all been goal throws, but putting people on the doorstep in a position where the goal is much easier. And been one of the only people to kind of try those throws, her and K-Spot doing both. But really nice choice there by the coaching staff to move Dang over at a really important point in the game. See if that's going to be a good shift and see what she can do there.
And the question now for, I think, the Gridlock coaching staff, Brittany Taylor and co., it's whether or not, and you see her at midfield along with Ian Foley, just wondering, hey, are we at some point here with 11 minutes to go, do we continue to shorten our lines? Do we play again? Abby Hecko, how much burn can we give her? Jezerski, how much burn can we give her? And Sam Harris, there's a moment you think that they might jump over to D-lines. We've seen Eddie Lamb, we've seen them play some D points as well.
Yeah, a bit of a smaller roster. Not a ton of room to play people on both, but definitely a lot of the crossover from their star players is really useful, especially in the fourth quarter, if there's points are not multi-turn points.
Yeah, a little bit tough for the Gridlock as well. With some of those late scratches and some players moving up. Normally just bottom of the roster players who weren't expected to be playing much this season. And 4 different players in that role. But that to make mention, Maggie Fan has gotten the call up since the beginning of the season. So really 3+1. Krebs with 10 and change. Cartagena. I don't think Harris was expecting it. And you see, I think the integrity call, it is an injury call on Sam Harris. So the 2 questions here is Sam Harris all right? Seems like they're okay. And the brunt of that action was just when they hit the ground here. And again, I don't think Sam Harris was expecting this either. As you see them come inside on this horizontal cut. Oh, well, maybe a little bit of contact from behind that might have created, again, the incident. So I think this is going to be not only an injury, but a foul before that. So the Gridlock will likely keep possession here.
It was really hard to see. It seemed like maintained possession and kept it off the turf, but there was one part where it looked like it slipped through their leg and might have. It was really hard to see. But
the question was that possession lost because of prior contact from behind? I'm not sure if the foul was called, but Jezerski comes out here for this point for Harris, and the Gridlock do keep the disc. I think Philadelphia might have, again, had the integrity ruling there. Look to be the signal from up here. Cartagena. They leave Krebs open. To the back of the end zone. Krebs. Wide open was Waverka. And looking at the observers, they say goal. I said it's a game of inches, so Waverka towing that sideline.
Some Surge folks looking to call that out of bounds. Can't necessarily see the color of the line there, but it is an active call by the observer.
And Cash App disagreeing, saying that Waverka did not keep it in bounds. Again, the observers are there for a reason. Keeping one eye on this one. So we are tied up at 13. And for going back to the first quarter, Andrea, you think about that super long 5+ minute point, right, where it was the dirtiest of holds for New York. it does feel like now these offenses have found their groove, and you might just get one or two more chances here to break.
Yeah, not a lot of turns in the second half, especially not as much as the first half. People have been cleaner. I don't know if they're playing a little tighter. They're not willing to take as many risks, but we'll see who's able to break out of that and see what they can do. Surge choosing not to play Lisa Dang on this O point after her performance on the last O point. Back to their O-line that we've seen throughout the whole game.
So it is back to Cunningham in the middle there, with Liang being the center point. Former soccer, basketball, and tennis player back in the day. Warms my heart. Again, prior to Frisbee, again, that was my 3 as well. And I can attest it's quite applicable, though for Liang at a much higher level. And doing it all with her left hand as well. Here's behind the disc, Maroon to Hironette. Really tidy offense here by Philadelphia, using the whole width of the field. Just continuing to get these break throws off. Now one throw away. Hironette. Cunningham with the wheel. And right back to Hironette.
That backhand force, so that was a lot of breaks to the backhand side. Surge on the last point was forcing all backhand. That throw seems to be a little bit easier, a little bit more high percentage in this, so it's interesting for Surge to choose to force that side because that seems like it's been pretty easier. Gridlock has gotten a lot of those off quickly. And then Surge able to score on that same side. The backhand looking much more sound in this second half.
So we are 14-13 with 8:33. And just like in that third, when the Surge desperately crying out for a break, I think for the Gridlock, it's the same thing. And we are fortunate to see again Sam Harris. Wonder if they will return to the game, but they're able to come to the opposite sideline, walking under their own power. But not on for this O point, it should be made mention. So Harris giving a thumbs up to the crowd. That might mean I'm all right for this, but it's Shaw instead who comes over. And Shaw has played almost exclusively D points here. And also no Hecko on this O-line for New York.
Hecko is out there.
Correction. Yep. Abby Hecko had her hands on her knees, so for once I could not see that bun of Abby Hecko. As Hecko is on the disc now against this Philly zone look. For Philadelphia, too, in this zone. And how much time will it take off the clock? Well, they did break through that first phase. New York not having too much trouble with it. Krebs shoots end zone for Shaw. Moeller with positioning, and that was always sailing. And the refs agree that even with a little bit of contact there at the very end, there was no play for Shaw to make on the disc. So Krebs gives it up. And Philadelphia with a chance to go up 2. My, oh my, would that have been a highlight for Jolie Krebs to get the disc back. But instead, the Surge will continue downfield. Abby Thompson shoots. It's Lamb defending. And snatching it out of the air is Rayo. Finishing the play. The real question now is 7:20. Is that enough for Philadelphia?
It's another backhand point. So a lot of that backhand seems to be working well. The flick has not been as high percentage. A really nice grab here from Rouse, excuse me.
Yeah, for Rao, you really did think Lamb had gotten positioning, but it was Rao with that right hand going up and over and with composure to finish the play. Now 15-13. Redlock will need 2 breaks now to tie this one back up at 15. 3 breaks to take the lead. And now you think back and go to that moment in the third quarter when the coaching staff of Philadelphia called that timeout. And it seems like, not to say they won't need it, but they've now put themselves in a position where they can continue to try to tire New York out and waste time and waste the clock now. So you might not necessarily want to call that timeout anymore.
Yeah, that's always the debate is, do you want to save one for yourself at the end of the game? I think generally most sports, basketball, all sports like that, you want one just in case you need one at the end. But it also is good to put some pressure on yourself sometimes and say, we don't have one, we have to play with the situation in front of us.
And just from a viewer perspective, it does make the end of games a little more palatable when it's not just timeout, 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 and all those start and stoppages. Here's Krebs. Overka. Again, more of this zone from Philadelphia trying to hamper this New York offense. Working well, Cartagena. And New York did move most of the field in the last point before Krebs, just about 20 yards away, turned it over. Lamb playing catch with Krebs. Nice edge. Dzerzky had to bring it down and going crossfield. That will float. Harris. And I think Harris might call a foul as McKenna and Moeller, who both have Harris by 1 or 2 to 3 to 4 inches, coming on either side. Let's get a look at it, Andrew, and I'll let you be the deciding factor here. Dzerzky, you can see the idea, but it just, as we know, to that sideline, floats a little bit too much. The question is, I think, McKenna, but I think the contact with McKenna was after the disc had already passed. Same thing with Moeller.
It is really close. McKenna does lean into the back a little bit, but observer ruling not a foul. I think that's a good call for that play. Obviously some contact, so if you're saying that's not a bad call, you're saying, I think I got touched. Definitely did get
Correct,
hit
yes.
by McKenna. You just can't tell the flight of the disc, how much it's within reach or not.
And after all that, the disc is returned right to New York, right around the same position that they were a few moments ago. Krebs, Hecko on that short sideline. Krebs dancing. Instead, they center to Cartagena. Cartagena to Waverka. Dang couldn't get there in time. So New York gets one back. It's an upwind hold. They get 15-14. 5.5 to play.
Dang, able to read that throw is about to come off. Moeller as well, both of them in pursuit of that, but just a little bit too far outside the play. Great recognition by them, leaving their people, leaving that side of the end zone, but just a little bit too open on that side.
So 15-14, Surge still leading with 5:38 remaining on the clock, to be exact. And Philadelphia has just been clean since the end of that third with their offense, and if they continue in this way, it will give New York very little opportunity to return the favor. It's a standard D-line from New York, with the exception of Krebs, who returns. And we saw Krebs with just a fingertip away from getting a block in that last point. That's a heck of a catch. Here in it. And she had Bonassi going deep, making her season debut.
Player like Bonassi, who this game has not played as many points, has a ton of room to run there, able to use some legs that have maybe been stored up for the game. So that's a really great cut to steer the play that way, but just didn't have the throw in that moment.
And Bonassi continues up the line for K-Spa. K-Spa, that's a high stall count. Cunningham now switching the field for Liang. Liang finishes to Bonassi.
Another sort of just doubling down on my last point. Bonassi on the other side of the end zone, reading the play that it's breaking across the field, able to use that speed, sprint across the field. She's fast anyway, but again, using the legs. You're one of the people that haven't played every single point. You should go out there and play your absolute fastest, your absolute hardest hustle, and we saw that from her 2 times that point.
Of course, winning franchises need players like that. Her 4th season, but just making her debut today, already knew the system, so again, can fit in, even though everybody else has had their full live game reps. A big moment, too, for Bonacy. Puts her team up 16-14 with 4.5 to play. I wouldn't say New York is running out of time just yet, but we're nearing that, as this will have to be another upwind break for the Gridlock.
We'll see if we see that zone pressure from Surge trying to slow down the clock, trying to run the clock, speed up the clock, make them run out without a ton of opportunities to score.
Muller will pull. Krebs. Harris back out there. Good to see. Remember, New York did lose Connerly as Jezerski hits the ground again. Able to toe the sideline. Shaw. Over to Lamb. Conroy defending Krebs. That's, again, a good, fun, athletic matchup. Lamb against Thompson. Under 4 to play now. Okay, New York continuing to maybe run out of time. You got a pick downfield.
Gridlock here, leaving a lot of space towards the back of the end zone. Sometimes you see a lot of teams push to the back, leave space at the front. They're really tight at the front, leaving not a lot of room, leaving some space towards the end.
And Krebs, by the way, leaves that low as Harris got to take another injury timeout. Yeah, it looks like they just pulled up there. Knew there was an issue, so we'll see Gridlock, who they insert into this one. It looks like Meta Leary for her height and length. Long-time member of the Westchester and Hudson Valley Ultimate Scene. And making her second season with the team, but made her debut just last week. Muller against Maida. That is the 00 and 6 feet and over club.
And it says De Jesus on the back of that jersey. It does not
it
say
does.
Illyria.
It does. Again, that is the practice player call-up situation. Again, we still get treated to 00s here. As you mentioned, Gridlock still giving backhand here. Muller to the end zone. That's a beauty of a throw. It will hang up. And what a catch. Maybe the catch of the season in bounds. And we talk about Grace Maroon being a superstar. Superstars make superstar plays. And not only is this a superstar catch, but it might be the catch that puts New York away in this game.
Lots of air on it. Able to read it. Shot right in the frame. Just able to reach up at the last second, make a good play. We see Maroon make that contested type of catch frequently. We've seen it from Rao this game in the second half. Kashyap, a lot of that under pressure. Gridlock is very much in the frame, in the scene, but we're coming down with some of those 50-50, maybe even 40-60 balls.
Maroon, Philadelphia through and through. Philadelphia product again, remember, at UPenn. As Connerly, and her day is done after hitting the ground, and Harris coming up limp again. That all line for New York, just trying to find their way throughout the end of this game. And now we've got a D-line, O-line situation with Hecko and Jezerski playing two ways for so much of it with a lack of depth today. Brown is going to work with Chin and Fan in that backfield.
This is where we see the zone from Philadelphia. 2:28 left in the quarter in the game. You want them to slow it down. You want them to waste time so they can't make up that 3-goal deficit. And they're not really pushing the pace. They are kind of playing in that contained space.
Travel called on Chin. Emma Chin starting out in 2013 for the first New York YCC girls team, Stuyvesant High School, Carleton, and coaches Columbia men's and Stuyvesant girls teams. Again, so many of these players as well in both the Philly and New York communities, giving back with coaching, with mentoring, then taking the time to say, hey, fill the stands with your other players. Come and see Coach. Do it at a high level. Brown, that one tipped. And will hit the ground with 1:35 remaining. Muller. That turn might have been the nail on the coffin, but again, Philly would really like to put this one out of reach. Kashyap. Looking for Diang. And Dang in her first season, as you mentioned, from the D.C. area, as is Maggie Fan from Columbia, Maryland, so the greater DMV area.
Cunningham as well, playing shadow, and Scandal for a couple years, moved to Philadelphia recently for this season, so we have a couple D.C. editions, a couple Pittsburgh editions, all while keeping a good Philly base. Harnage as well from D.C., commutes
right.
Still from D.C. currently.
Again, Philly not in any hurry. Harnage. Under a minute to play. It looks like Philly will move to 5-0 this season. And this would be the exclamation point here. High stall count. Nice layout. Alvey. Now 30 left. Another high stall count. Shooting for the end zone. And another grab. Lamreo, originally from Westchester, New York, so making her return home as officials are going to bring this one back for a stall. And if you're Philadelphia, again, you don't get the goal, but I think it's contested, so.
A play they could choose to go to the observer, but choosing not to. Observers are supposed to be counting that stall, but Cassie Brown not looking to go.
And immediately getting it off. So again, they could just waste time. This game would end 17-14 as here in the fourth quarter, the Surge showing you why they're the top team in the North Division, why they've got that 1 seed, and why they get to, with this win, avoid potentially DC, who looks to win the South Division, as that was another high stall count. Heading up into the end zone. And Muller couldn't connect. Shaw will get the block, but doesn't matter too much for the Gridlock because they fall in this one 17-14. They move to 2-2 on the season, while again, Philadelphia at 5-0. They will win the North Division, regardless of what happens in their final game in a few weeks' time against New York. And for Philadelphia, this was that playoff challenge that they expected from a gritty New York team who had to make some personnel changes. But for Philadelphia, felt like they were outplayed for 3 quarters until the fourth, and then they weren't.
Yeah, definitely a lot of shifts. Had to fight their way back in the first, and then after a couple messy plays, able to really finish strong.
Well, before we leave you, Gridlock fans, your health deserves a winning team. Well by Messer brings together an elite group of specialists from endocrinologists and internists to dietitians and psychologists. Led by Dr. Caroline Messer, they provide a total mind and body approach to your wellness. Visit Well by Messer in New York or Connecticut and take control of your metabolic health. And if you enjoyed the game today, please consider donating $20, the price of a game ticket, to help support player travel and training. We thank you very much. And before we go, Andrew, I will just ask you one final time. This game, it did feel like a precursor to the playoffs, but truly it is just a precursor to their return matchup in a few weeks after New York has gone to Indianapolis to play the Indy Red. And even though they won't play in the postseason, it does feel like both these teams, if New York is able to get there, are now more battle-tested.
Yeah, definitely a great first look at each other. These teams have gone at it tightly for the last couple years. So, hard fought. Obviously, some roster changes could shift the game significantly either way, but really nice for Surge to take the first one.
So that will do it here. Again, we thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon with Philadelphia moving to 5-0. New York falling to 2-2 in the North Division standings. For our entire production crew and for my partner, Andrea DeSabado, I'm Dan Hilton, and have a great night.